So in this video, I'm kind of go over how to kind of set up function calling in VAPI, how it kind of works, and how to kind of use it, and how I use it to build this inbound booking assistant. I can book meetings, reschedule meetings, cancel meetings in Calendly. So if you don't know what Calendly is, that's just a meeting. It's a calendar app pretty much. So that's what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I mean by function calling is pretty much like kind of I guess, a integrated tool or integrating tooling in a it's also kind of a concept or system that allows AI models to kind of um, to output certain parameters you need or certain values you need, and pass it to functions that can do like interact with external systems or do external actions. So what I kind of mean about that. So imagine if I had an AI chatbot, AI voice bot, and I want to book a meeting. What I can do is I can get that AI model to kind of output that person's name, the person's email, and then the date and time they actually want to book the meeting. And I can take those values. I'll have that in a certain format, like a JSON format, because it needs to be readable to the system. The system that I'm gonna pass those values to, or the function that I'm gonna pass these values to. I'm gonna take those parameters and I pass it to a function, and that function might be some type of code or some type of tool that might make an API call to Google Calendar or Cal.com or Calendly with those parameters that would actually allow me to book those functions. So that's kind of how the concept of function calling works, and that's I'm gonna break down that. I'm also gonna break down a few other things like briefly that are kind of similar to VAPI. Some cool things that VAPI does that are kind of similar to the function calling concept that I'll go more in future videos, but I'm gonna go over a little bit more because that's how it allowed me to add a few cool features to the AI booking system I'm gonna go over. So first, let me give you guys a demonstration of what I built pretty much, and what I'm gonna show you the build using function calling. All right, so I'm gonna try calling it now. I'm gonna type in his number +1 90270 750 36 and call speaker. Oops. All right, let me put in speaker.
Take your time. I'm here whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I was calling to. I'm building a. I want to get an AI voice bot built for my call center.
That's an exciting project. AI voice bots can really enhance efficiency in a call center by handling repetitive queries and providing 24/7 support. Could you tell me a bit more about what specific features you're looking for in your AI voice bot? Or
Um,
would you like to set up a meeting to discuss?
yeah, I'd like to set up a meeting. That'd be nice.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to help you set up a meeting. Can I have your first and last name, please?
Yeah, it's a Lozi Ibakwe.
Thank you. Could you please spell your first and last name for me?
Yeah, it's ALOZIE IGBOKWE.
Thank you for that. Louisy Parkway. Can I also get your email address, please?
Yeah, it's alozi2k at gmail.com.
Thank you. Could you please spell out your email address for me?
Yeah, it's ALOZIE2k at gmail.com.
Got it. Let me validate your email. One moment, please.
Okay?
Thanks for giving me your information. Give me a second, just want to confirm the information got is correct. It looks like our system indicates that the email may be invalid. Let me spell it back to confirm. ILSOCIEE 2K at G Hello.
You're a little. It's hard to hear you. Let me repeat it for you. So it's alozie2k@gmail.com. So ALOZIE and the 2 and the K and at gmail.com. So alozie2k@gmail.com.
Thank you for clarifying that. Let me validate the corrected email address. One moment, please.
Is that email good?
Thanks for giving me your information. Give me a second, just want to confirm the information got is correct. It seems that I still have an issue with the email. I want to make sure I have it correct. Let me spell it back to you again. LSOVIE2k@gm.
Still a little fuzzy, but you're close. I think you said F. It's ALOZIE 2k@gmail.com.
Thank you for your patience. Just to confirm, it's ALOVE2k@gmail.com. Correct?
No. ALOZIE 2k@gmail.com.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. Let me validate the email one more time. One moment, please.
You get it?
Thanks for giving me your information. Give me a second, just want to confirm the information got is correct. I'm still having trouble validating the email address. It seems there's a persistent issue. Let me spell it out slowly for you one more time. ALOZIE2k@g and
Yeah. You add 2 I's. It's only 1 I. So lozy2k@gmail.com. Only 1 I.
Thank you for correcting that. So it's LOZIE2k@gmail.com. Let me try validating that corrected email address. Thanks for giving me your information. Give me a second, just want to confirm the information got is correct. Thank you for your patience. Your email has been validated successfully. Now, let's schedule your meeting. When do you think you'll be most available?
Does tomorrow work?
Sure. Tomorrow is December 31st, 2024. What time works best for you? Morning, afternoon, or evening?
Afternoon.
Great. In the afternoon, we have the following times available: 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m., 2 p.m., and 2:30 p.m. Do any of these work for you?
2:30 p.m. is good.
Great. I've scheduled your meeting for December 31st, 2024 at 2:30 p.m. Is there anything else I can assist you with today?
No, that's it.
Thank you for calling. Have a great day.
All right, thanks.
Goodbye.
So that's kind of the end of it. I'm gonna go over kind of the overview of what kind of happened, what was done, and just so you get a basic understanding. I'm gonna break down each kind of functionality that happened in the call, each kind of type of function we called that kind of took place in that call. So let's kind of break down that call. So I think the first thing that probably caught your eye was that the AI was validating my email. It was saying that, oh, your email's invalid, or let me validate your email, or it's still invalid. And you see it try to spell it out for me, or it'll try to work with me to kind of correct the email, get it right, until it gets it valid. And so that was one of the function calls where it's doing email validation. That's one. Another thing you probably saw is that it knew my availability. And then it was also able to book a meeting. Those are one of those is a function call, and one of them is a type of kind of it's calling a function. It's a little different than a function call. It's happened before the call actually starts, but the both are the same concept. They're function calls, and then there was one that I was actually supposed to do another function call where it's supposed to do an end call function call, which allows it to automatically end the call when when the conversation's finished. That didn't work, and I'll kind of break that down more. But those are kind of the 4 function calls that kind of happen in the call. If we go to my Calendly, let me go to my Calendly real quick. So actually, go to my email first. You can see here that I got email sent for the meeting. And you can see, guys. So it got the email right, but it got some other stuff. It did a lousy bot. It got the name wrong. But we'll also go to my Calendly real quick. And then you got the time wrong here too. Let me go to my, and you can see a new meeting here in my Calendly. So there's still things that I got wrong. Voice agents are far from perfect. They're still very beta. AI is still very beta. It's very dynamic and very early. And again, it's very dynamic. These things are trying to mimic human intelligence. So that's not an easy thing to do and to be consistent at also. So it's still very there's still a lot of issues and stuff. And you can see here, didn't get to I think I said 2 p.m. and I'm Eastern time zone, so there shouldn't be a change. They didn't get the time correctly right. It didn't get the name right. It got Parkway. It didn't end the call. It's supposed to use a call function to end the call. It didn't do that. So I'm gonna go overall, like I'm gonna show the flaws of it, and then I'm gonna show how all the different ways you can kind of fix those flaws and go and ways you can minimize these flaws to get the voice bots more consistent. It'll be very hard to get these things 100% consistent, and you would just need I guess systems in place to kind of have double checks in place to kind of when it does miss, you can be on top of it. But there are ways that you can minimize these flaws, and that's something that it's very important to learn, to understand what the flaws are and how you can kind of minimize it, or what workarounds you can use, or what are all the different ways that you can kind of fix these issues that you're having. So that's one important aspect that I also pay attention when listening to this video. So the first thing I'm probably gonna break down is how my AI voice bot got the availability for my calendar. That's the first step it does. So I'm gonna break that down. So now I'm gonna go over the first function call. This function call is something that actually happens as soon as the call starts, or pretty much it happens when the call is actually ringing. So it happens before the call starts. And I'm calling it a function call, but it's not exactly a function call. So you have this little make automation over here, and what it is, it's a server URL. So it's not a typical function call in a sense where a model is creating parameters based on the user's request and then actually calling a function. It's something that's actually happening before the call even starts, before your interaction with AI even starts. So what VAPI actually calls it here is a server URL, and server URL is pretty much like an API endpoint, a webhook that can actually receive and send data to VAPI, so it can kind of interact with that VAPI, and it's triggered by all these different events, and you can see them here. You can see status update events, transcript events, function call events, and what the two main events we're using here is a system request events and end call report events. What these two events let you do is they let you get a dynamic conversion of your assistant. If you don't know what I mean by that, if you go to my VAPI, you can see I have all these assistants here. You can see I have all these different parameters I can set. So if I go to this assistant, you can see I have the prompt, I have the model I'm using, I have the transcriber I'm using. So they have all these properties and variables. What this lets you to do is it actually allows you, instead of using a static assistant that you statically created, it allows you to create dynamic assistants per caller you're calling. So the assistant can be unique or dynamic based on the scenario, based on who's calling you or whatever. So then we have this end call report. So I said this function call is used to get my calendar availability and insert it in the call, so the AI knows my availability. It's also used to kind of add data to any type of database. I'm using Google Sheet for example to show you guys, but any type of data is used to add it for any type of database. And what I can also use, if it's the same caller is calling me, I can kind of retrieve data from that database. If they already called me before, and then get something like call history or whatever, or their name or email, and I can kind of personalize that call based on if it's a old customer client calling me. So that's kind of what that end call report helps me with. And so if you kind of go to my make scenario, this is my server yo. So anytime a certain event triggers, it will trigger this. It will trigger this make automation. And how it works is that there's two routes to this make automation. And if you go here, you can see it's just checking if message type equals end call report, and if message type equals ringing, or status equals ringing. It can also it can also do the same thing with type. And what it's doing, if you go here, I said that different events can trigger the server URL. So what happens if I actually go to the make automation? Let me go back and show you some events. So if I go to the first event here, you go here, go to message, you can see type equals here, assistant request. So this is the assistant request event, and usually what happens to assistant request events happens in the beginning of the call. So it happens when the call is ringing. So it happens once a user calls a phone. That's when the assistant request event starts up, and it sends the event to the server. And this is what I'm going to use to kind of get my calendar availability at the beginning of call, and then put that inside my prompt. So the AI actually knows the availability. So if I go quickly over that real quick, pre-call automation. So what's happening here is that first it's gonna what variable it's gonna get from here is that usually when it's sending a variable, it sends, like I said, it sends a bunch of variables when it hits the URL, and one of the variables it sends is the phone number. So if I go here, this is that's not the number. This is the number that's calling me. So it sends that variable, and that's the variable you want to use, because we can use this variable to first, if you have a database, we can use it to run queries in our database and actually get any unique information we want from our database. And like I said before, my database right now we're just using Google Sheets since this is an example. We can find this phone number inside our Google Sheets, run a query on that, and pull any data we want from there based on the query. So that's what the Google Sheets is doing. It's just running a simple search row query, and a simple search filter. And then what it's gonna do is it's gonna get the dates from, it's gonna get the availability from Calendly by calling the API. And then it's gonna run some code. This is where we're also gonna use the phone number. It's gonna run the code, some code to actually adjust the availability based on the time zone the caller is in. So it's gonna run some code to actually it's gonna take the user's phone number, the caller's phone number, and it's gonna run the code to adjust availability by its time zone. And we're doing this because AI is not very good at math, nor is it always consistent. So I'd rather asking the user during the call, or like what time zone you're in, so the AI can adjust the availability. I'd rather try to figure out before the call. Now this isn't perfect. Now I go deeper later in why this is not perfect, and there can be some flaws in it. But I think this is one of the preferred ways I like to do it. And then if you actually look at the webhook response, you can see all these dynamic variables we have added here. You can see, and you also see, if I scroll down, you can see this result. These are gonna be the available dates, and I'll actually show you. I'll actually show you the actual how it actually looks. But yeah, this is the biggest reason why we're using this, because we want to add dynamic variables to the prompt. So the assistant, like if you want the personalized call and the AI to have previous have actual personal information or previous call history on the caller, we can add dynamic variables in here based on the automations we run. And if you want the call to have availability before availability, if you want the AI to have ability in the call instead of calling a function call during the call, we can actually get the availability before the call and add it into the prompt. And again, there are pros and cons to this. Where I'll talk a lot about more. But I do kind of think it's a smoother call experience where you don't have to go call the function during the call and have the caller wait for the AI to get the available and all that stuff. I think it's a smoother call experience when you can get it before the call. But yeah, this is how the kind of the basic. Also, actually, no. Let me also talk about. I talked about how it can also send the. Also sends the. If I go here, it also sends the end call report during the end of, when the call is ended. It'll send the end call report event because I said events. The events trigger certain things in the URL, the server URL, or VAPI will send a request to the server URL based on specific events. During the end of the call, that would trigger the end of the call event, which will trigger the automation. And what this event does is it sends data that we need from end of call, like the transcript data. There's also it has a summary. It gives you summary data you can use. Mentioned here, there's some difficulties to confirm the caller's email address, which is false. So this is if you watch the demo call, it's meant talking a summary of what happened in that call, and just building an AI voice for their call center. The caller did not provide details about the features they're looking for the voice as they prefer discussing the meeting. So it has the meeting details, perfectly. And I think I discussed before that. I mentioned before, I showed you before that the dates weren't as accurate, when we looked at the goal sheets. It got some weird data, and I'll show you how I'm actually kind of getting that data. But it gets all this, it does all this automatically for you, and then it also has if I go down. I go down to assistant. It also has a thing called analysis plan. Let me see if I have structured data. Let me see if I can find if it actually has the model assistant. Summary transcript. Okay, analyst summary. So here's a summary. Here's the structured data. So it actually got this data perfectly. And I didn't use this data. I think maybe it's actually better to use the VAPI one. But what VAPI allows you to do is if I go to VAPI, I go to analysis. It allows you to allows you to write a prompt to create a summary that for the AI to understand how to create a summary, and it allows you to create a prompt to get structured data from that. So if I wanted some type of structured data or some type of JSON object, I want AI to send some type of JSON object with certain values or parameters. Like the user gave me his driver license ID number. They want to extract that from the call in the JSON object. This will kind of help me do that. And then there's also success elevation eval, which allows you to write a prompt for the other side if the call was successful or not. And VAPI will send all that data in the end call report. And I think maybe I should have gone and used the VAPI data to add to the Google Sheet instead. But what I did add instead is that what I'm running is I'm using my own separate models, and I'm using that to create a summary, and I'm using that to create a structured output. But as you see in the Google Sheet, it's not exactly perfect. So maybe this isn't the best way. I can also just, instead of that, make an API call to some other model or some other functionality. Like if I see, so I could use, like, Gemini has API and it has a structured output. It has a structured output functionality, and I think Gemini has been getting a lot of rave lately. It's been talked about as being, they've been doing really good stuff. It's been talked about being, and it's really improved and really good. So maybe I just make an API call and use something in Gemini instead. Instead, if I don't want to use VAPI and I don't want to use the make models. I think VAPI uses OpenAI, and I think they may, I don't know other model, but they use OpenAI and so on for their summation stuff. But if I want to use the outside model, I can use that, or I can just use what VAPI has. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much the basis of kind of that's pretty much kind of the basis of it. I'm not sure if I left anything out, but I'll kind of break down how to kind of set this up and kind of the pros and cons of the stuff. Some of the ways I did things. So how you can kind of set up your server URL. First, if you want to, you can go to scenario. I mean, I'm not gonna set all this up by scratch, but you'll create a webhook. You create a custom webhook. You create a random hook, and you can copy the URL. Then what you can do is that you can go to settings and go here. Settings. And you can copy and paste this URL right here. Now, if I actually go to server URLs, just briefly, when setting up, you can actually attach it to in multiple different levels. You can do organization level, you can do phone number level, assistant level, and you can do function call level. I'm not gonna go too much on all that right now, but what we're doing is that we're gonna set up at an organization level so that once we any I guess any phone number or any phone number will be hitting that server URL pretty much, or will be hitting that organization level pretty much. But what we do after that, after we set that up in the URL, we can go to not assistants. We go to phone numbers. And you want to, if you have a system here, you want to remove it. You don't want to have a system attached to it because we're creating a dynamic assistant, so we don't want a system attached to it. We want it to hit the server URL. You can see right here, so that it will send a dynamic assistant to the to VAPI when that phone number is called, pretty much. And then what we usually do is that you have a webhook response. And this webhook response will have our actual assistant configuration that we want to give to VAPI. So I think if I go, let me see if I can find the documentation for it. I think it's here. Scroll up. Yeah, so let me see. Server events. So there's a certain format we kind of follow. This is not it. Let me see the certain format we want to kind of follow. So retrieve assistance. So let's talk about retrieving assistance. So for inbound calls, you want to specify the assistant based on the caller's phone number. So this is our dynamic assistant. What we want to give is we want to give it something in this format pretty much. So what I usually like to do is that I like to use the Get Assistant API. I go to the API reference and I go to find Get Assistant, and I like to call this actually get the assistant configuration I want pretty much. At least I want to get like the base assistant JSON configuration that I want to use. So I can click play here. To get my barrier token, I can just go to here. I can go to API keys. I can just copy that ID right here. Then go here or here and paste that. Go done. And now I can just get the ID of the system that I want to use. So if I want to use this assistant, I'll find the system ID right here. Get paste here, and I can just paste it here, and I can send requests, and I get the assistant. So I can copy this. And what I like to do is like to edit maybe in a JSON finder or something, or I'm using this JSON path for this JSON site that allows me to easily paste and edit JSON and see it's right. Now what I want to do is that there are a few things I want to change, remove. for this to be a valid JSON I can use for my dynamic assistant. I want to remove created, updated created. I want to remove ID and org, and I want to remove is server accurate. And then now what I want to do is that move that comma 2 because that's invalid JSON. Now what I want to do, if we go back to the JSON format, we have this assistant thing right here, bracket, and we have the assistant bracket here. I want to add that in here. So go here, go on top, assistant, and then go, why it's not editing? It's no reason pause. Okay. For some reason pause, I have to go recopy everything. It's annoying. Okay. Copy. Okay, and I have to close it here, here, and then now you can. I'll copy that. I can copy that and add that to the. And add it to the body of this webhook response. Now, when somebody calls that number, they'll go take that JSON configuration. This JSON configuration you made for your as your assistant. So take all these parameters and values, and you can edit the prompt here, or you can go to, or you can actually just edit in VAPI and then get that assistant. But this allows you to get dynamic assistance. You probably run some type of automation or some code that will kind of get the dynamic configurations you want based on maybe the caller or whatever you're doing. Pretty much for here, the dynamic configurations are based on the number and then the availability, and we're just inserting that inside our prompt. Let's see, and then going back here, a few things. So sometimes when you're doing this, sometimes you get an error back. So sometimes it won't work as you want it. So let me see if I can get a create example. So let me go to pre-call animation. Let me go to edit. Okay. Let me go here. Let me just go here, comma, get assistant. Add this. Add that. Okay. Okay, and I'm gonna run it, and then now I'm gonna call it. Look at all these tabs open. Need to clean up. Let me call this. Call.
Couldn't get assistant. Either set the assistant ID on the phone number, or, to debug your assistant request, check the debugging artifacts that were just sent to your server.
So you can see now we got an error sent to us, and it's asking us to check our server. So sometimes if it doesn't work, you get back an error. It'll send you back an error. That's because our JSON wasn't valid. It wasn't valid, so it couldn't actually get the assistant. So if I actually go, discard changes, go back, click here, and I click here, it says the status, it was ended, and it says assistant request return invalid assistant. So it tells you the error, and then like I mentioned before, what is this dumb thing? Like I mentioned before, so let me remove some things. Let's see, where is it complaining out? Right. Okay, so like you see here in the error, it says it mentions the error that the AI just said out loud. Now she gives us the actual error and says assistant property assistant server URL should not exist. And remember I told you we had to delete that variable. So when we added that variable back, it sent back an error and told us error. So if you ever want to kind of debug it, that's one way. Also, usually what will cause errors is the JSON be invalid. Sometimes the error, it will give you the error here, but sometimes what I like to do sometimes is that I would go to create assistant. I'll just copy this. I go to Postman. Nope, actually not new request. I'll go to Postman. I'll click post. And I'll click body. I'll click raw. And I'll take whatever it had JSON. Take copy. And then I'll take that. So if I send this now, you'll see it will answer, so it's like operation header. But if I actually made a JSON error like this, send here, it will actually tell us the error. It will just tell us where the error is coming from, which is line 49, bad request. So if you want it, usually it'll tell, it'll even when it has a red marker, it's saying that there's a formatting issue. So if we ever, maybe it's not the issues is that the JSON's bad. So you ever want to debug the JSON stuff, you can just send a request in Postman using this create assistant URL, and it'll help you send you errors back on what's the issue with the JSON. And you can see here I added that comma. Once I remove that comma, there's no issues anymore. So that's another way to do it. But that's kind of the basis of how that's the basis pretty much how that server URL setup works. Now I'm gonna kind of show you how I did that Calendly automation setup. So I first want to kind of break down the Calendly, how to kind of set up this Calendly API automation where you can actually get the available times from your calendar. So how you usually do that is that you can use this API called event type available times. This allows you to pull all your available times for whatever specific calendar you're using. If you don't know, with Calendly, you can with Calendar you can set up multiple. You can set up different calendars. You can pretty much set up different calendars, and each calendar will have maybe a different type of availability or something, or it'll just be a different type of subject or whatever. But pretty much you can give availability based on that calendar. And what you usually do, like I said, is that you will use this endpoint called event type available times. Now the issue here is that this thing asks for an event type URL. And so when I say event type URL, you want to get this, that's a specific parameter for the calendar we want to use. So it's a unique identifier for the calendar we want to use. Now we'll usually get that is that we have to call the get current user API to kind of get our user URL. We have to do that because we need that to list all the user event types, and this will output all the different unique identifiers or parameters for our calendars. One of that being the URI you see here. You see right here. So, and to do that, you need to have a calendar API, Calendly API key. So if I actually go to Calendly Developer, no daytime. Okay, you can set that up from, I think if you go to the workflows, no, there's integrations. Yeah, it should be integrations. Yeah, API webhook, and then you can create a new token. So I can create another token here. Yeah, I won't go for all that, but what you do is that you can go create a new token, and then you can make an API request to using me. So if I can send an API request here, that will give me the that'll give me the user URI. I can use that, or I think the user URI, or I can actually get the current organization URI too. So you can get either one of these, either the user one or the current organization one, and I can go to not event type first. I can go to list user events. I can go put that URI here, send a request, and then I get all my different events I have. So this one here is the AI consultant event. This one here is AI voice consultant event, and this one here, yeah, and this one here is the testing one. And I can get the where's the URI? Users goes in URI. Where's the event? You can hear the event that you're right here. And you can copy that, and then you can actually call the event type of roll time to that URI with your end time and start time. And you have to do it. It shows you the specific format you need to have it in. It needs to be in this type of format, and then you can only do each API call can only be like a week duration. It's like 6 days. If you do it longer than that, you get like an error. If you do a wrong format, you get an error. So make sure you have the proper format. Make sure that your end time is past your start time, and make sure it's only like 6 days or you get an error. But that's how you can kind of set that up in Calendly to get the available dates and automation, and make it has a Calendly model, so you can use that to do that kind of setup. And yeah, and then once you get that, I don't know if I forgot to show you this, but yeah, I think make sure I show you this. And then I did show you this, but once you let me go back to exit. So yeah, I mean, once you do that, you can just I have the code, which again is that it's finding what user time zone the user is, so it can adjust available times based on that. And then once I get that value, I can add that inside my prompt, which again I showed you before, and I'm doing right here. And I'll probably have the resources to the scenario, the JSON scenario that you can copy the code and everything inside like a GitHub, so you guys can access and look at it. But I want to kind of go over like kind of the pros and cons of using this concept. So, for example, for making these I guess using Calendly and making these getting available dates pre-call, one issue is that again that Calendly is only it only has a 6-day duration, so you can only make in one API call you can only get available times in a 6-day period. Now, what happens if the caller isn't available in the 6-day period? Then you have available dates for that. Now, what you can do is you can simply have multiple API calls. You have multiple API calls that can that will go multiple API calls. So maybe you have one API call that goes um, does it from January 1st to January 7th. And then you have another API call that's January 7th to January 12th, whatever, and January 12th to January 17th or 18th or whatever. Um, that will allow you to retrieve data. That will allow you to retrieve extra data by making multiple kind of API calls that can pull available times from your calendar. I think the other issue here is I think that was the other issue I can think of off the top of my head is that it's not real time. So imagine if you have a bunch of concurrent calls happening at the same time. So you have a bunch of people calling at the same time, and they are in the AI. The automation is getting the before the call. Automation is pulling dates from the calendar. What happens if during that call, during one of the calls, somebody books that date, books that date while somebody else is what if somebody else books that date, and then while somebody else is in another call, the AI doesn't know that. The AI is not updated on this user already booked that date, so it's gonna still think that date is available, and that kind of issue can happen when if you're having a bunch of people calling the AI or dealing with AI at the same time. So how you can kind of how I would kind of deal with it. I think that one's a little a trickier issue. One way is that you can what I'm doing. I'll show you now. I'll show that in the video when I'm talking about that function. But when I book the meeting, I book it kind of in the background, so I don't have the user kind of sit down and wait for the AI to actually confirm the booking. I just have it booked in the background because I don't want the AI, I don't want the caller to be just waiting around, waiting for the function to finish and confirm it. But what you can do is that you can have the AI actually tell the user to wait until he confirms the booking before actually like ending the call and all that. Now the issue I have with that is that, at least for me, especially for the function I'm doing, the booking component takes a long while to run. So I don't really want the caller to be kind of sitting down waiting for that function to finish, because that takes a good bit to run. Second, I mean, you can have issues. Because the AI, you can have issues with the AI doing double bookings, or you can have issues with AI accidentally doing double bookings with that. Now, if you have programmed the return an error if there's a double booking, then that kind of fixes that issue. But the main reason why I wouldn't do it is because I don't want the caller waiting. I don't want the caller sitting down waiting for the function to run. Another thing you can do, I have to read up on more, but VAPI has this thing called live call control. And what it allows you to do is that it allows you to dynamically send your AI data or inject items into your call, into your live call, pretty much. So I don't know if it has an example here, but you can see here it's ejecting the message during the call, and it's ejecting the message for VAPI to say during the call. So what I'm thinking is that I can have what I can have is that if a meeting is booked during a call, and let's say if there's a bunch of concurrent calls, and a meeting is booked during one of those calls, I can have that automation send something to the VAPI, something to the VAPI, to alert it that, hey, this date is not available all, so that it can automatically in real time know what dates are available or not, or know when something that was previously available has been booked. So I have to kind of play everything and see how viable it is, but that's one way I could go about it. And then the other issue with the other thing I'm doing here again is I'm getting the time zone. And I think I mentioned before, I want to get the time zone beforehand and adjust the dates beforehand, because the AI isn't very good at doing math or being able to correctly, accurately, consistently correct the times based on the user time zone. So you want to use some type of code or function to actually make sure that the times are correct based on the caller's time zone. Now, again, like I mentioned, I'm doing it by checking the user's phone number. That might not always be accurate. The user's phone number might have an area code in like US, but they might be in, I don't know, Thailand or something. So it's not always 100% accurate. I mean, what you can do to fix that is that, I mean, you can ask the user during the call what time zone they're in to kind of confirm it and make sure that they are in the correct time. They're in the Your assumption is right. Your assumption on their time zone is right. And then if it's not right, you can have you run a function that kind of realigns the available times to the time zone they're in. Now, the reason why I feel like I'm doing a little, I feel like it does seem like I'm doing a little extra by calling the dates beforehand instead of just doing it during the call and kind of making it a lot more smoother. But I know I like to play around with it and do this and trying to test it out doing it before the call, because I feel like the less type of functions you're calling during the call is a lot smoother. Because again, calling functions they take time. They take a lot of time during the call. So when you call a function, then there's like an awkward pause for like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds, or maybe longer. So I feel like the less functions you have to call and the more simple your functions are, and the more faster they run, the more smooth the call will be. So you won't have all these awkward pauses during the call. That's why I kind of like playing around and trying to get the important details, do the big functions like get the availability stuff before the call, and have like very like quick small functions that can run fast during the call. So the call seems more natural, and there isn't a bunch of awkward pauses, pretty much. So that's kind of the breakdown of the the availability component in the server URL component. So now I'm gonna kind of go break down some other functions that I showcased during the demo and call, and I built out. So real quick before I go to the other functions, for your Calendly, like I mentioned, you need to have it in the proper format. You can use some of the functions or the formatting tools that Make has to kind of do the proper format. You can see here I'm using the format date function and the parse date function to adjust the format, and I'm also making sure to add 6 days to the end time value. I'm doing a certain function. So, I mean, again, all this will be in like a GitHub that you can access and copy and stuff. So, yeah. Now, let's go to the next function. This function is for, kind of validating our emails. Remember in the call, every time I gave the call, every time the caller gave the email, the AI would actually make sure to validate. It will say like, "Oh no, the email's invalid," and it'll keep going back and forth until it says the email is valid. We're using that's actually a function call that's happening there. So we're using a tool called mail.sao. This allows me to kind of validate email. So for example, I have an email called Gmail. I have this email called alozidevjobs@gmail.com. So if I type in alozidevjobs@gmail.com, here, send, it'll send a score of 100. The main thing I'm looking at here is the deliverability. That's what I'm looking for. So usually if it doesn't send a score of 100, that means usually it's the deliverability's issue. Usually it'll send like something like 60. And if it gets something like that, and deliverability is an X, that means it's probably most likely not a valid email. So for example, if I just take away this S right here and I send it, you see it gives a score of 60. And it's not showing here, but if I go here, where it says where does it say deliverable? No, true, false, false, disposable, false, false, macro. Do you mean okay, reason undeliverable. So here it says undeliverable. So then that means email's like not valid. So this isn't 100%. This isn't going to always be 100%. Sometimes maybe there is a valid email, but it's not the correct email of the user. But I mean, you saw how they can even see that if there's even a small mistake, it can see that it's not deliverable. So I think it's one of the few. It's like one of the few things you can do where you're trying to get. It's one of the few things that can really see how accurate emails. I think it's one of the. I mean, it's one of the best. I think it's one of the gives you the ones that gives you the higher rate of success of validating email. At least from a basis of not just sending them an email and just confirming it from that way, or having them text it out and see the text or something. But from a speech to speech standpoint, I think that's one of the best ways to kind of validate it, or one that give you the highest success rate to validate. So how we kind of set up this function. What we kind of do here is that we go to tools. And you can see all these tools here. Usually, it's usually how you can set this up is that you go to new tool, based on if it's an API endpoint or like you wrote some code. Usually, you just do a custom tool. If you use a low code, if you use one of these low code tools, you use making go high level. If the local tool you're not using is not here, you can just use custom tool. But usually, if you make your VAPI account, you can just pick scenarios from here. But usually you can just go to scenarios, go to your make scenario, go to your automation. This is our basic automation. You see here, you can see it's using mail.sao, copy email address here, and then paste it here, and then you can go to save, and then move that. And then you can go to next. Now property names. Let me do this. Duplicate. These are usually the values that you want. Remember what I said. How function calls work is that the model is interpreting what you say, and then it's picking what parameters you need to pass to the automation or to our function you're going to call. So if I'm going to book a meeting, I'll probably need to pass the email, the date I want to book it, my name, and so on to the function automation, so it can actually book the meeting. So if you go here, if I go to my email capture tool, you can see the basic parameters I'm getting is just the email, and then I'm just adding description to that property that I want, so the AI understands has a better understanding of what value it should extract, or what value it should extract from the conversation. And then I go here, so if I can just go next here, then this is just the basic name description. So this just makes it easier for VAPI to understand when to call this function. By describing it, I describe it as it captures the caller's email, so it can send to a validator to the confirmed email. It's accurate. So again, it's a basic description to help the AI understand when to call this function or what this function kind of does. Go to next, and then you have the basic stuff like start message, response message, text message, error message. So these are just stuff that so for example, if you want to say something when it calls the tool, like if it's booking a meeting, you say, I'm booking the meeting now, you can add that as a start message. Delayed response. So if your tool is taking a long time and you want the AI to kind of say something when it's taking a long time, like, hey, sorry about the delay, just give me a few more seconds or 10 more seconds. You can add that into here. Success message is like, if the tool is complete successfully and you want to send a success message to the user, like, okay, the meeting is now booked, you can add that. Then error message is if there's an error, you can add a message. Like if your function returns an error and you want the tool to say something when that happens, you can say, oh, our booking tool is down right now, our calendar is down right now, we can't book it at this moment. I'll send you email so you can directly book it by hand or something. If you want an error message like that, you can add that. Now I really like the error message stuff, but I don't really add anything to the start message or the success message because I can just put that in my prompt. I don't need to put it inside here. I can put it inside my prompt. But I really like the delay response message and the error message. That can be, it's a really helpful. It can be integrated well. You can technically could also prompt the error message, but it's good to just have add an error message there or a delay response message there. And those are the basic things you have to set up. And then when you actually want to use this tool with your assistant, you go to your you go to your assistant. So you go to your whatever assistant you want to use. You go to functions, and then you can pick what functions you want, and you can add it there. Now the next component, the next component is pretty much kind of prompting the AI to call the function, and this part is more difficult than it kind of sounds. There's actually a video with the VAPI CEO, I think around the 9-minute mark, 10-minute mark. He talks about function calling, and he talks about the kind of difficulties of kind of prompting the AI to consistently make function calls. Even if you go to the VAPI Discord, you always see people complaining about how the model is not calling their function, and yeah, at this it's very hard to kind of get to accurately call the function. And I mean, the VAPI CEO talks about how it can hallucinate a lot. He talks about how if you have an end call function where you call a function to end the call, whenever you want to end the call, whenever you want the AI to end the call, you might have an end call function. He talks about how sometimes the VAPI forgets to call when to call the end call function. You saw that in my demo where it didn't actually end the call, even though I added an end call function, and I'll go over that a little bit later. Or sometimes it might call the end call function when it doesn't need to end the call and end the call early. So hallucinations are a really big issue when kind of trying to prompt AI to use this function. I think the VAPI CEO also mentioned that they actually have a model they fine tune to kind of actually validate the function calls beforehand, because it's very hard to have the AI itself to actually kind of accurately know when to use the function calls and use the function calls properly. So showing you the best way how I kind of do function calls and how I integrate into my prompt is first, you want to make sure you're using one of the smarter models. I think again the VAPI CEO mentioned this too in his in this video. I'll probably add this video inside. My bio, like in the description. But you want to make sure you're using one of the smarter models. If you use like a lesser model like 3.5, the chances of it getting the function called accurate will decrease. Where if you use a smarter model, then the chances of the function called right will increase. Now I think the VAPI still also mentioned this too. I'm not sure when or where, but I think most people also agree with this. OpenAI is the best model to use if you want to have accurate function calls, and you just want to have accuracy in general in calls. Actually, I think it was another CEO. I think it was Syndra. I think this Syndra CEO. It's another voice tool. I think he mentioned OpenAI is the best model to use for voice. I think a lot of people like stuff like Claude, but Claude not as good. I think the latency is also higher, but Claude not really as good. I think, especially for voice and function calling, you want to use a GPT model, and usually the MIDI ones are smart while also being cheaper too. So that's one thing. Then how I prompt it. So how I like to prompt it is actually, let me go to one of these prompts. So how I like to kind of prompt my stuff is that I'll have two things. I'll have dialogue. Dialogue is the examples I give the AI and what to say during certain scenarios. and then I'll have an instruction section. And instructions are the things like the actual instructions I want AI to follow. How the how I want the things that AI needs to follow to know how to act during the call, or when to say something during the call. And then I have the call function section, and the call function section is usually inside the dialogue, and it just helps the AI understand when to call a function and what parameters to kind of pass. And I always give AI a description of uh, of what these sections are, so under it fully understands when I have a section inside the prompt, and it doesn't confuse it, because sometimes if you don't label the instructions properly, or label what you don't want the AI to say, the AI will just like straight out just say the instructions in the call. It'll even sometimes say the call function in the call. So not only do I do this, where I swiftly say that this isn't dialogue for you to say during the call. These are instructions I want you to follow, or these are instructions to tell you when to call the function and how to call it and what parameters to pass. What I also do is I actually prompt it. I prompt it to understand that this is a voice conversation. This is a one-on-one conversation where you're outputting like you're talking to a person. You have to understand that if you understand the architecture of how voice works, the intelligence model is what decides the reason, or decides what the AI is going to output during the conversation, or what the AI is going to say. And the that model is a text model. It doesn't have the full context of that. This is It doesn't have the full context or have the full understanding that, hey, this is a phone call. I'm a AI voice agent. I'm an AI phone agent. I'm a customer service bot. So I should output my response in a certain way. It doesn't have that full context. VAPI maybe might have that in their system prompt. I don't know what. Maybe they have a system prompt integrated inside your own prompt that tells VAPI that, but we don't know what that system prompt, or tells the AI that. We don't know what the system prompt is. So in that sense, what I try to put in my prompt is that I try to make sure that AI understands the full context of what's happening, or what it's doing. I want to know that it's like a voice bot, it's a voice agent, and it should only output dialogue, like dialogue or things it would say in the conversation, in a human to human conversation. This helps it understand that it shouldn't just output function calls. It shouldn't just say, hey, I'm calling the email validator function or something, or I'm calling the booking meeting function, because sometimes it likes to say that. It likes to say, when it calls a function, it will say that it's calling the function. I don't want it to do that. So to show you how it kind of looks like, let me go to the email validator one. And actually, let me copy all this in the Google Docs for you guys to see more properly. Copy. Until I can get more organized. So here, this is a good one to see. And so here's how it will look like. So you have the instructions. You have basic instructions. So you choose a scenario if the caller wants to book a meeting or agrees to get a meeting booked. And you have stuff like, hey, you need to collect the name, you need to collect the email, you need to get them to spell out the email, and then you're gonna validate the email. So you're gonna call the function. So that's the same thing. Let me actually go up here. Introduction. So you have to validate the email, and then it tells you what it tells it what to do when based on the response it gets. So it's gonna, based on the response it gets, it's gonna act a certain way and act in a certain scenario. And I'll go more in what the response is getting. how we're sending the response and all that stuff, and how we're sending the response back to the AI model or VAPI. But based on the score it gives, remember I told you that I want a score of 100. If it's a score of 100, it's a valid email. So the tool returns a score of 100, then we confirm the email is valid. If it's less than that, it returns it will tell it to kind of for the user to spell it back for them, or we'll have the AI spell it back for them, and then we'll have the user confirm if it's correct or not, where the mistake was based on how based on what the AI says. And then so then we have our dialogue example. So this is our dialogue. This is what we tell. This is the example of how we of what the AI to say. So we're giving examples of what the AI can kind of say, and then in this here, we have the call. We tell it when to call the function, and I also have to make sure. What I like to, because I said somebody likes to exactly say I'm calling this function during the call or during the dialogue. So on top of the other things I did in the beginning of the prompt, I always say, do not say or output anything in brackets of function call section. These are instructions for you to follow. Do not tell the caller you're calling the function or any details. So I like to put that inside there. And I tell it when to call the function, and I will tell it I'll tell it what parameters it should get. So I'm telling it that it should get these email parameters. So this user gives out this email right here. So I'm telling that based on this conversation, this is the parameter you should be setting to the function. So it understands what it should capture, what details it should capture. In a sense, it gives it you have an example of how it would exactly kind of work, and then it'll also also give example of based on the response. So based on if the response is 100, you should say this. If the response is 60, you should say this. So that's kind of how I'm kind of prompting. That's how I'm kind of prompting my kind of email tool. Some water. Ooh. So this is kind of the best success I have with calling functions. This usually, I mean, in my opinion, it usually works. It's usually this kind of this concept I'm using. It works. It kind of works for me. These prompting concepts, I'm gonna talk about them in the video because I think it's important for understanding functions and building a good voice bot with function calling. But I'll probably go a lot more into this context in like a prompting video or something. But one thing I would also mention, so like I said, this is probably one of the better concepts. In my opinion, these are one of the better prompting concepts to use when calling functions. But that the VAPI does mention that their solution to having more accurate function callings or have the AI more understand function calling is this new tool they're building called Blocks. And what it does is it works as a workflow. So let me see if I have an example. So how it works is that you have multiple different conversations, and you have based on the certain scenario, you have a specific prompt that handles that scenario. So if you actually go to my prompt, you can see how I have things like scenario 1, scenario 2. What this does is that instead of having all this in one separate prompt, or having all these parts in one separate prompt, remember, even these scenarios, I have like, hey, you first get the email first name, then you ask them to spell it out, and then you validate it, and then based on if it's invalid or valid, you do this or you do that. What VAPI blocks lets you do is that you can separate all this into different prompts, and this will help it since you're not given this huge prompt. With AI, the bigger the prompt or bigger instructions you give it, the harder time it has following accurately. So that helps with it by giving a smaller set of instructions. It kind of helps it make it more accurate and be more consistent, pretty much. And I think I'm not sure if VAPI has this, but one of the best I guess tools when it comes to this concept is Bland. They have something similar, and what they have also is that they'll have stuff like let me see, a new node. They'll have stuff like webhook node where when you want to call a function, the AI will go to this webhook node, and then it will call that function. So that helps it get a more consistent output. Now, I think the VAPI CEO, I think if you watch that interview and you've watched any of his interviews, he's really set on thinking that domestic flows is the best way to kind of reduce hallucination. I think even VAPI, I think what Bland says a lot is that their stuff is hallucination free, which is it's not really true or accurate, but that's what they kind of sell, that pathways make your voice bots hallucinate free. Now I somewhat agree that I think this pathway concept I think with the current limitations of AI is a really good concept to adapt and to use in your kind of into implement with your voice bots, but um, but I mean it's all I think there's still some issues with it. I think there was one time I was working for a client and we were using Bland pathways, and what happened is that we had a scenario. We had the AI voice bot introduce itself. Then we had like 5 or 6 scenarios that the AI will do or go will or 6 different flows the AI will go through based on what the user said. Now the issue is that if the user then said something very similar to the expectation we had it to say, or had to say, so if we had something like we have introduction, and then we have the then based on that we'll go to this pathway if the user says, hey, yeah, I'm interested, or we'll go to this pathway if the user says, hey, I'm not, I'm uninterested. We go to this scenario. Now, if the human said or the caller said something that doesn't really fit that doesn't exactly fit the scenarios we've set up or the prompt scenarios you prompted, then the AI would start hallucinating. And the issue with kind of this pathway flow or this kind of pathway flow is that humans and callers are very, very dynamic. There isn't like a human can say a million different things, and the conversation can go a million different ways. So this pathway it kind of goes against the kind of dynamic sense that that human conversations have, this really dynamic component of human conversations. So that's why I'm not like 100. Like I think it's really good current infrastructure to use because AI is limited, but I don't think it's like the future because instead of really being a human intelligence, it's really more like a more intelligent AVR and stuff. Now I want to go over how to kind of how to send your response back to your VAPI tool. So once you set up the function stuff, the AI will call the function, but you also want the AI to get the proper response from the function or tool you're calling. So there's a certain format that we have to kind of follow when sending when sending outputs back to VAPI, and this is the kind of format we have to follow because of the VAPI documentation. I think they mentioned this somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Oh, maybe. Let's see. Documentation. Okay. Yeah, they mentioned it here. So this is the kind of the format you want to kind of send back to your VAPI assistant. And the key things I would mention is that this thing is very case sensitive. So even anything can really throw it off and make it and prevent it from sending the actual output to VAPI. For example, let me go to another tool I have. Let's see, email out there. Let's see what I have here. Here, get available from VAPI. Let's see if I can. Because it's been a while since I called it. Let's see if I can see. Isn't save history forever? Want to make it. Let me see if I can make a request to it. That's a little annoying. I wanted to show you the kind of format it sends it in, but so what the format usually is. I wish I could show the format, but I don't want to call the whole thing. But the format will be something like this. The format will usually be something like this. It'll be something like this. Oops, why is it not doing it? Why is it being annoying? Alright, let me just go here. So the format will be something like this. And it'll be like 12/31/2024, 6 p.m. And then it'll be in brackets, and then it'll be in square, and then it'll be in like you have quotations or something, and then it'll do a comma, and then next time will be in brackets or something. So what happens here is that these brackets and a lot of these things it messes up the JSON format that you're supposed to send it in. So it really messes up the JSON format you're supposed to send it in, which gives, when it comes back, it won't actually give the actual result back because there was a JSON formatting issue with it. So what I did there too is that I had it clean up the format, so the format works with what I had AI clean up the format, so the format works with what a VAPI needs and works with proper JSON. And the bigger thing is like if you have really big text, the spaces can cause JSON formatting issues too, I think. So if your system is not getting the proper output, usually it's something with the JSON that you need to check. And like I said, you can use a JSON formatting tool like JSON Path, or you can use that. You can use some endpoint that can help you cross check the JSON or something. Maybe you can use AI, or you can use code itself to do that. But yeah, that's where issues can kind of come from. And then if you ever want to see any issues, if you think that what the function call is sending is inaccurate, you can always go to logs, calls. Let me see. Calls. Go to messages. Why is it so ugly, bro? Okay, here. See. So this will tell you if it calls the function. It'll tell you what parameters it sent, and then it will tell you what response to send. So you can hear response. So if it doesn't send if it doesn't get the response, or you have an error during the function tool, it'll just say no result found. If it gets a response, it'll say the exact thing that you put inside your in the result, pretty much. So whenever I put this into my result, so that's how you can kind of debug this and cross check. now now since I kind of break down that function part, just want to talk about some other components with it. Is some of the issues that comes with doing the email validating process. You saw that even when using email validator, it kind of gets the call quality or the call experience kind of drops because you're always going back and forth because the AI is not very good at getting the email accurately. So I think that's just kind of a limitation of the current models we're using and the current architecture. The best way to kind of fix that issue, in my opinion, from that standpoint, is using a better, different architecture or different voice or different TTS model or through prompting. So a lot of these TTS models tell you that you can. I think one issue is that when the AI was repeating the email back to the user, so the user can correct the email, it couldn't repeat it properly. It had a very you can see I was saying a lot of rubbish. It had a very hard time repeating the email properly. So a lot of these TTS products like 11 Labs or DeepGrand say that you can make it speak slower by using stuff like dashes or dot periods. Now, these don't really work that well. You can see in my prompt, I actually tried that. Yeah, I mean, I actually tried this in my prompt. They don't work, in my opinion, they don't work that great. Even this prompt, I did dashes. They don't really work that great. So it's like an if solution. Another thing you can do is pick a better voice. I mean, I really like Playhit's voice. I like one good voice. I think was Aurora. I think it was Aurora. That was so play it. You can pick a better voice. I think some voices they're more consistent. They're more slower paced. Some voices are more faster paced or more erratic. So you can pick a better voice, and that will help. That will help the AI kind of repeat the email slowly, so the caller can easily have easier time correcting you. It also help with pronouncing stuff better. But that's one thing. Another thing is I talked about if you see my previous video, I talked about the new speech to teach architecture that's been coming out, and I talked about stuff like OpenAI real time API, and I talked about how that takes in audio and audio input and audio output. Now these are since it's not since it's taking pure audio input and pure audio output. I think not only does it have, I think they have an easier time understanding what the user, just transcribing what the user is saying and spelling out, but it has more, I guess, dynamic capability, and it's more fluid, so you can prompt these things to kind of repeat things slower and stuff. And VAPI actually has it, so I'll show you an example, but also want to show you some documentation too. So if you go to here, steering text to speech for a more dynamic audio duration, it talks about how you can actually prompt a TS to have certain accents, certain tones, or you can prompt it to say things in a certain way. So, I think where it says that. So, it allows adjustments in tone, pitch, and speed and emotion. So, this is OpenAI's new TTS model. So, it's TTS model. So, OpenAI, I remember I told you that OpenAI is OpenAI's GPTO model is now takes in audio inputs and audio outputs. So I think that it's helping its TDS and stuff to be more varied and more dynamic. So using I think if I go to VAPI, go to model. Go to OpenAI. So you can VAPI does have OpenAI as a TTS, and you can use this to have more, I guess, fluid and more fluidity in what and how you can prompt the AI to do something. And then Even here, you see, I don't know, I forgot which set of documentation it came from, but it talks about how you can have it speak faster, slower, louder, quieter. So this is the real time API, and how you can prompt it to you can prompt the voices to be more dynamic during the conversation with. Where normal TTS models like 11 Labs and Playhead, it's very hard to kind of prompt it to be expressive or speak faster, slower. Because remember, um, these things, the one that's handling the reason isn't the TTS model. Um it's the intelligence model. It's the text to text model. So, and text to text model doesn't know that it's passed into a TTS model. It doesn't handle. I mean, it doesn't handle the text to speech component. So you can't really use the intelligence model to prompt it to say something slower, say something faster, unless you're implementing those dashes or periods to trick the TTS model to do something slower, like we mentioned. So I want to show you an example of the Open Real Time API. And I'm going to use, I think we can just use TTS and not just use the real time API, but for this, I'm going to use the real time API too. So to make sure that it's actually accurate. So I'm going to use Alloy because I think that's the more, this the it's the base voice that most people use. And then I'll use the real time closer. You see how expensive it is. Use a mini real time closer in beta. So it's in beta. So these are betas. But confirm. Okay, and then let me play this.
Hi.
Hey, yeah.
Hello. How can I assist you today?
Don't you need my email?
Could you please share your email address with me?
Yeah, it's lozy2k@gmail.com.
Thank you. Could you spell your email address for me to ensure I got it correct?
Yeah, ALOZIE2000
Okay, give me a second. I'm running the email through our system to validate. Got it. Thank you. I'll use this information to proceed. Let me know if there's anything else you need.
Was it correct? Are you sure it's correct?
The email address alozie20k@gmail.com seems to be invalid. Let me confirm I heard you correctly. Did you say alozie20k@gmail.com?
No, I said ALOZIE2k
Thank you for
at
clarifying.
gmail.com. So that's really what I actually want to show. You see how it said it a lot slower. So now it prompted it to say here. Let me see. I think did I prompt it to say a lot slower. Let me see. It captures by email. Yeah. So I didn't actually, I told this to have pauses and stuff. So but you see how it said it a lot slower based, and it was able to say it a lot slower and a lot consistent. So if you want, usually with the real time you can get it more consistent. The issues I have with the real time is that I think um VAPI has a 4.0 mini, so it has a cheaper model, and you can also just use a TTS, which is cheaper too. But usually the base, if you're using the base real time, I think real time component where you're taking pure audio and you're using the pure audio input component and from pure audio output component, it's really expensive and it can get really expensive. So I think that's one disadvantage. I think there's I mean, you see here VAPI has a cheaper component, and I think you can just instead of using the pure audio input and pure audio output, you can just transcribe this piece of text and then use the OpenAI TTS, which, I mean, if I showed you before in their OpenAI's documentation, that one's also very dynamic in what you can prompt it to do, anyways. Another thing I seen that it's not as it's not as intelligent as the other models. I feel like, I mean, it's not as intelligent as other models. So you saw here, it had a hard time understanding it understanding when to tell me that the email was invalid and invalid. So I don't think it's as smart as other models. I think one fix to that is, again, I really like the this determine. I do like for now. I do like the having these workflows to kind of get the dumber models more a better way to have more consistent outputs. I actually want to build something with OpenAI and these flows. I want to integrate that OpenAI, build something with these flows in OpenAI so I can have, because a lot of these I think a lot of these tools don't have OpenAI integrated, OpenAI real time integrated with it. So I do want to build some tooling for that. But I think that's one way too to kind of get a more consistent output. But again, if you want to say something slower, if you want to say something more consistent and slower, I think that's one way to do it. And what was the next thing I was gonna say? Let me see. Oh yeah, and then from a transcription standpoint, we also saw that it had a hard time even when we were just spelling it out. I mean, with the real time, I didn't spell it out right. Let me actually test and spell it right because I intentionally spelled it wrong so that you can see it spell it back. But let me try and spell it out right correctly. I just say issue validate. Let me refresh.
Hi.
Hey, do you want my email?
Yes, please. Could you provide your email address so I can assist you further?
Malosi2k@gmail.com.
Thank you. Could you spell your email address for me to ensure I got it correct?
Yeah, it's ALOZIE2k@gmail.com. Do you hear me? Hello?
The email address alozi2k@gmail.com seems to be invalid. Let me confirm I heard you correctly. Did you say ALOZIE2k@gmail.com?
Yeah. Is it running the function? Maybe not running the function.
Thank you for clarifying. Let me update that. Did you mean alove2k@gmail.com?
No, I meant alozi2k@gmail.com. So I got it right. So it got
Great.
see it got it right. I think, like I said, the the real time model. Even though I haven't really worked with the prompt, I just built this prompt up for testing, so I can test out I can just run tests and show you how the model works. But again, it's a little dumber. It returned a 100 valid score, and it was saying that the email was invalid. So again, this model is a little dumber. I think I could probably prompt it to make it more consistent, make the prompt smaller, but it probably can't handle a huge amount of instructions. And this is where I say this building a workflow component with the OpenAI real time API is probably the best way to kind of fix that issue to make it to give it more simpler instructions to kind of deal with. But you saw the transcription part. The transcription was pretty accurate too. So it looks like even using the Open Real Time again API again, the description is more accurate. I think also what you can also do is that with I think OpenAI also mentions that you can kind of you can prompt it to kind of give more accurate transcriptions. Now it's very hard with emails because emails can be they're not always simple English words. They can be vastly more complex or complicated depending on the email. But again, the AI gives some information on how to prompt your transcription better. And if you want to use maybe you can fine tune a describer. If you want to fine tune a speech to text describer, you can also do that. VAPI does allow you to bring in custom transcribers in here, so you can use a custom transcriber if you want to also and fine tune describer. But yeah, those are some of the solutions you kind of fix that prompting thing. You don't want to email if you don't want to use a tool to validate email. Maybe you just want to say maybe you just have a function that actually sends a confirmation email to the user, and that might be easier to confirm that the email is correct or not. Or maybe if you're doing if you have an appointment booking assistant, maybe you book the meeting and then you confirm if the user got the booking email before you move on. Now I feel like that would be a little harder. It's a little less fluid because then you will have a bunch of meetings booked with the wrong email, and you have to delete those. You have to delete those previous bookings. Also, the user will have to wait until those function to that. Every time the user will have to wait until the meeting's booked, and usually those booking meeting function calls and API calls are usually a little bit slower. You can also have. I remember I told you that we can send dynamic messaging to VAPI or the AI during the call. So you can also maybe either have the AI have the caller send a text spelling out the email and then pass that to the AI. Instead of saying it, you can have it just send a text message and it can get the email from that. It can confirm and get the email from that. Or maybe you can have you can have that. You can have that instead. Or maybe you can just send a text. You can have the user manually book it, and then you can have a automation that sends a conversation message to VAPI to confirm that the user booked the meeting. But whatever, many different ways you can go about it. So now I want to finish this off of going through the kind of the book meeting functionality and the cancel and reschedule meeting functionality. So yeah, going to the booking function. So what I have is, basically is that we have another tool where we actually book the meeting. So we have the basic setup, tool name, description, and the parameters you want to kind of gather inside the prompt. We're kind of just doing the same components, same type of prompt style. And what we're doing here is, you see you see the function is that we're actually making an API call to some code actually that I set up. So what Calendly doesn't actually have a typical, doesn't have an API that can actually book meetings in. So with that, we have to be kind of creative. And recently, there are these there's been a lot of these new tooling coming out, new software, new models, new features added to previous kind of I guess LLMs, or not really LLMs, but the components. Like components you can access, like how GPT has like Search GPT and other components. There have been new components been added, and it's like AI browser automation. And if I go show you what I mean, let's go show. We'll go here. Okay. Pretty much, it allows you to kind of do certain actions that a human can do, but with AI. Usually, if you wanted to do automation in the browser, like let me say I wanted to go, I want to automate buying a bunch of stuff on Amazon. Like I want to automate buying stuff. I just want to buy a bunch of soap or a bunch of workout equipment for some reason. I want to automate that. Usually, you have to write a bunch of code to actually you have to write a bunch of browser automation code to do that, which is if you're not familiar with web automation and writing scripting and all that, it would be pretty difficult. But with AI, what you can do is that you can pretty much prompt AI to actually do these things for you. So they actually physically spin up a browser, or spin up a virtual machine, and then get log in into the browser and actually do these actions. And what I mean is, if you see here, this is one of the tools. This is a tool I use. It's called AirTop, and you can automate. Pretty much, you can automate. Like I said, you can automate actions with AI, and it has like I think 3 main functionalities. It has page query. I think it has page query, which I think you can scrape. Is that scrape data? I forgot what page query is actually. Let me go check what that is in the documentation. Let's see, what is page query again? Let's see. Make integration okay, it even has a make integration actually. So I didn't even know that. So it has a make integration here you can use. So I didn't even use the make integration, but it has. So you don't even have to write code for this. You can use the make integration that it has to kind of do that. Let me go to the make it. Let me demonstrate this first, and I go to the make animation real quick and set up, and I'll go over the code too. Where is the breakdown real quick of what is AirTop? Let's see, what is page query doing? Okay, page query is just it's scraping data, but it's running queries on pages. So sometimes I think if you mention here, sometimes you want to extract all the search result in the product search page, including all the pages. Sometimes when you're searching something up or when you're asking a certain link or website, it has multiple different pages. So the first page that you see there is not the only information you can access. So sometimes you have to go through multiple pages. That's what the page query does. And then everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Scrape. If you want to scrape data, AirTop can scrape data for you. Click page at an interaction. I think if you want to actually click elements in the page, you can do that. Type page interaction. If you want to type stuff on the page, you can do that. And hover page interaction, which I'm honestly not. I think that's just for if you want to hover. Description of that you want to hover over element, which I'm not sure what's the difference between that and click page, but. This stuff is not just good for like basic for like stuff like booking meetings. It's good for like a lot of form automations. I remember last time when I was working with a client, I had to build out. He was using something called Civi CRM, and the API was very confusing, and I don't even know if it had functionality to do what I wanted to do. So I had to write some code to actually do that automation to fill out the form. But with these things like this, I don't need to write code for that. Now I can just use this API, and it'll have AI do this action for me. So if I show you an example, let me go here. Make let me go here. My Calendly schedule events. So usually when you want to book a meeting Calendly, you'll like you can usually you have a booking page, so you have something like this, and you have to pick a meeting you want to book. So usually you have to do all this. Now with AI, I can kind of automate the aspect, kind of automate this kind of aspect. So for example, let me see this one. Let me copy here. Go back here, and I can feed it the URL, and this is I can feed the URL. Start a session. I'll take a bit. Okay. So usually first, what I tell it, what I tell it in my code too, is that it needs to get rid of this I understand thing, because that kind of blocks my capability for the AI to actually see anything. So what I first tell it to do is click the blue button with the I understand text. Okay, and it does that. And what's cool about this is that it'll give you the code for this. So you don't have to understand how to write code at a high level. You can use Replit and then copy and paste the code and easily host the and host this thing. You can use AI to adjust it to an API endpoint you can call, but you don't have to actually read the documentation and understand the code exactly. You can just write an action inside this UI and actually get the code for it right away. So I don't need this. Let me cancel back to what I was doing. Then let's see. I want to tell it to click page, click January 8. Let me see if it understands this. Click January 8. Click January 8. Then click the element on the right with 3:30 p.m. on it. Let me see if this one works. See? So I might have to do that in 2 actions. Then click the element with 3:30 on it. So in the code, you probably have to do that in multiple. Instead of having that prompt have 2 actions in one prompt, you have to have those each separate action one the next prompt. So the next prompt will probably click the next element. Okay, and then this is where you can do typing stuff. So I can tell it to type in. So click type in page interaction. I can say type in talk about making AI call center. Talk about making AI call center, and then click in the white box under please share anything that will help prepare for our meeting. Yeah, see, and did that. So this is kind of one that a big future of these AI agents and AI voice bots too is that now you don't have to write code to do certain actions. Now you can actually use these software, these tools like ARI Top to actually prompt AI to do certain actions that would be pretty difficult to write code. So you don't always have to write code for these. You're given the capability for AI to actually act like a human, do human things with just basic prompting. So I mean these are pretty big, and this is what I'm using to actually kind of book my meetings. Now, to make it simpler, I'm not actually doing all these actions. Instead, what I'm actually doing is since I already know the date and time, what I'm actually doing, if I go to the calendar and I click a date, the thing is there's already a link to this. There's already a URL that you can use to access this. I don't have to manually tell the AI to click a date and go to this page. I can just have dynamic elements. I can replace these dynamic elements like the time, the time, the date, and all. I can replace all these elements dynamically based on the date and time the user mentions and call. So I don't need to actually have the AI to get. I don't have the AI to do certain actions to get this page. I can just input the elements, the date, time elements and stuff to get to this link, and then give the AI this link directly, so it's already in this page. Then I also don't have to do the name and email. I can just add query parameters and do name equals Alozi 1020 Bakwe. How did that work? Let me see what I do wrong. Oh, it's not question mark. It's and. Yep, and it's already there. So I don't need to directly do typing for all this. I can add query parameters to fill this in. Now the only issue with here is with the custom questions in Calendly, I didn't know exactly how to input those as query parameters. So this is where I actually use the AI automation, typing automation to actually type whatever the reason is. I have the AI type that inside this box using the AI automation, and I'll have it actually click the blue schedule event to actually schedule a meeting. So, I mean, if I go back to the automation, I can tell it to. Let me make sure to put name, put white box under name, and tell it to type Alozi Bakwe, run. Okay, and then white box under email, Alozi2k@gmail.com, run. And remember, like I said, there's code for every action, so you can do the action in UI and then get the code for this pretty much. And then now I can go to click page interaction, and let's tell it to say click the blue button with the schedule event text. And there, the meetings book. So if I actually go to my Gmail, you can see I got a new meeting for this time. So I clicked 10:30. I think it was 10:30, right? Yeah, I think it was. Was this 10:30? I don't remember. But I click. Oh, so I guess this thing is in. I've got Calendly is in UTC time. I have it in UTC time, so that's why I say 10:30 Eastern time. So yeah, so I forgot my train of thought. Yeah, so this is a really good tooling you can use for things that don't have easy to understand APIs or don't really have APIs. If you want to do certain automations or actions a human can do, you can use this tool because you can prompt it to do certain actions. I think VAPI also has natural built tool. I think because Claude came out with some AI browser automation. If I go to VAPI documentation, we go to VAPI. Let me search up Claude. So it says Cloud computer use tools available. You can use computer use like Bash tool, computer tool, text editor when building your VAPI assistants. So these are tools that VAPI already has built out for you. Does it work like I think it does? Honestly, I haven't looked too much into it. Let me see. Let me see, computer.
So I'm Sam, and I'm basically Ant Equipment. Ant Equipment is in there.
Okay, so yeah, it does work how I want. So these things allow you to use certain actions that certain actions a human can do by just giving it natural instructions. So VAPI has, I'm probably going to make a video over this too, but VAPI even has this tooling already built inside it. So you don't even have to use AirTop. You can use this tooling that VAPI already has inbuilt with Claude. So that's kind of the power of that. And then taking a look at the code real quick. This is the replit endpoint I'm running, and yeah, pretty much I'm just what I'm doing. Also, what I'm doing is I'm taking the date parameters and the name parameters and email parameters for the date. Now I'll talk about some of the pros, why some of the issues you might face when doing this. Some things I had to fix, and some I'll have to look into fix, and some of the things. I mean, it's issues I ran into in the demonstration, because when I showed you that it didn't have the name perfect. It didn't have the name perfect, and it didn't have. I think it even got the email a little bit wrong, too, and it wasn't accurate the date. So I'll kind of go over those issues and how I would fix those issues. But yeah, right now what I do is that when it sends me the time, inside the parameter it should state what the time zone is. It should state what the time zone is, and I have the AI look into that and parse the time zone, and so it can adjust it. It can adjust the date. It can adjust the date and time to the correct time zone, to the time zone I actually want to book the meeting. So if the user, let's say the user was in if the user is in Australia time, and I want to adjust that time to EST time because that's what my calendar is in, and then book the meeting. But I think one issue I face is that I'm having converted to EST time, but my active calendar is in UTC time, so I forgot to adjust that. But also go over some of the other issues that can come with this thing. But yeah, then it's just parsing the information that's sent from VAPI. As I showed you before, the parameters that it's sending is see. This is not the email. Where's the book teaming? It's like email, last name, first name, meeting date and time, reason for booking the meeting, and ECT. So those are all the parameters that it's kind of sending. And yeah, I mean it's just doing all the actions that I want to do. So it's doing each action as a separate prompt. And remember, it has each action different. So you have the type action, you have the click action, and then you have another click action. And you want to do for each action, you probably want to have a separate prompt. You saw when I give it 2 actions, it wasn't able to complete it. But when you give it, it was only able to complete one of the actions. But when you give it just a separate action, then it's able to complete that fairly easy. So now the issues that come into this that I would need to fix, or what you might be wary of, is actually, so when I'm looking at the calendar book meeting thing, this is the latest call. Is the parameters that are set. So there's a few parameters. So first, you can see I got my last name wrong. And then, then what else? It got the email. Even though it got the email correct when we were doing the email function, it didn't properly pick up the right email. And then and then it didn't state. I want to state the time zone. So one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to state the actual time zone it's in, because if it doesn't state the time zone, the code is just gonna assume that it's UTC time zone. It won't properly adjust the time. So, like I said, the AI is not always consistent in getting everything right. I think in the prompt here, I told it always to put in ISO 82601 time format. So it should have the time zone and all that stuff in that side of the format, but it's getting it in plain. It's getting it in plain text format. I'm not sure if that's the actual that's how Make is getting it, or if that's how VAPI is sending it. But I can confirm by looking at the logs call. I did it in the web. It's probably this one right here. Yeah, it's this one right here. The message, go scroll down. And you can see, let's see the email, but you're close. So see, got the email right, but it didn't do that. It didn't get the accurate email. So let's go down. Let's go down to and that's probably because it mentioned email multiple times during the call. So the AI missed that pretty much and was able to get the proper email. And this it didn't send it in the right format. I wanted ISO. I wanted it in the ISO format. It didn't send in the right format. So what I would do is that even though I don't really need to call the function I don't really need to call the function during the call, because what I'm doing, different from the email capture is that I don't need the response back from I don't need to send the response back to VAPI. I don't need to send a response back to VAPI. Once VAPI gets the information, it's booking the meeting and it doesn't need to talk back to VAPI. So if you go to tools, actually, and this is really big, usually if you don't want a result, you have this turned off. And what this does is it defines where the assistant will move forward or wait for your server to respond. So what it's saying, it will define if the assistant will call the function and then move on with the call, or if it will call the function and then wait for the function to respond. So so I would enable this if I just wanted to move on, and I'll disable this if I no, actually no. Let me see. Sorry. Yeah, I'll disable it. I'll enable this if I just want the AI to move on, and I'll disable it if I want the AI to kind of wait for that response. And again, with the booking function, I don't want to wait for a response. I mean, you could wait for it to send a confirmation message to just 100% know that the meeting was booked. But I mean, I don't, because for me, I don't like the caller to wait. I don't want the caller to wait for a function to run, especially if the function is long. I don't really want, because I think it makes the call experience less natural. So I rather have it be as smooth. And then another reason why I like to do that, another reason why I don't want to do that, because I think it's better to actually not have the book meeting function happen during the call. So I think one issue is that I have this is that I called this function during the call, and I was relying on again, when it comes to voice, I mean, I talked about it's very hard. I mean, we talked about what the VAPI CEO said and what he discussed, that it's very hard to get these function calls very accurate. So what I would actually prefer to do with the book meeting is actually have this done post call. So remember how we discussed about the server URL and how that that VAPI will send a response to the server URL after the call ends with a transcript every call. What I would do is let me see. Do we have this server URL? Let me see if this is end call report, and then see the transcript. So what I would prefer to do is that I'll have I think I can use another model. I can use a better higher level model. Just use the a model itself separate from the actual what's happening in the voices. That's the pure intelligence model to kind of get the information from the transcript, and then I can also validate it. So since I don't have to worry about doing it in the call and worry about having to send a response back to users, so I have to worry about speed, the speed of the function. I can have a bunch of validation tools in it, so I can use the mail.io tool again to validate the email, make sure that the AI got the proper email from the transcript. I can run code, or I can use AI or use code to validate if the date and time is in the proper format. If it's not in the proper format, I can correct it to the proper format. I mean, I can use validation tools to make sure that the name is as correct. The name is similar to the name mentioned in the transcript. And with the name, it's always going to be hard, because I mean my name is not a national English name, so the AI is gonna have a very hard time getting that right unless I spell it out for it. So I mean, as you mentioned before, we can always try to use a different model. We can use the real time model. Usually, that will have a better time of understanding what the user is saying. We can fine tune the model. We can use our own custom fine tune model. So there's ways to go about that, but it's always the AI is always gonna have a hard time getting names right unless you spell it out directly. But some people don't want the caller to have to spell everything out for the AI during the call, so that's why I didn't add that there. But that's one way to get the meeting. But again, the best way I would do to fix some of the issues I had is just have a validation tool to have run it post meeting, post call, so it doesn't have to. Again, these voice models, since there's so much going on, the function call is very iffy and hard to get they're hard to get accurate. So I can just run the I can just run the function post call and have a bunch of validation to make sure that the parameters sent to the parameters used are valid, and then have the booking function. Now I'm gonna quickly go over just the basics of the reschedule and cancel meeting stuff. So I just want to do a quick overview of the the cancel meeting and the reschedule function calls. Just a quick overview over it since the video is already gone long. So yeah, I have these two tools: one cancel meetings and one reschedule meetings. These are all the parameters that I have for this. One thing I mentioned, if you want, it helps. It's not you still have to prompt it, but you can if you for if for the parameters if they're always required, if it's always required to have these parameters, you add them down here and make sure you check mark them as required. You still have to go into and prompt it. If you go here, I already mentioned this before with the example, but I always have it prompted very hard to do those, to send those parameters in the function. Let's see. Let me go down to the example. So I have all this hard coded in here. So I have the parameters I want to send hard coded. I tell it, hey, you need to send these parameters, and I also prompted an instruction. So I go up, attempting to close the reason. So call the cancel meeting function with the email from the variable section and the reason for canceling provided by the caller. Confirm the cancellation politely and ask if there's anything else to assist with them. So let me call this and show an example first real quick. Hey.
Hi there. Welcome to Arbitrage AI Voice Consulting. How can I assist you today?
I want to cancel a meeting.
I'm sorry to hear that. Could you share the reason for canceling the meeting?
I don't think AI is ready yet.
I understand your concern. AI can be a big step, and it's important to feel confident about it. However, we do offer a free trial meeting to help you understand how it could benefit your business. Would you consider rescheduling to explore this further?
I'll call you back when I look at my calendar, but right now I just want to cancel it.
Understood. Just to confirm, I'll cancel the meeting and note the reason as not ready for AI yet. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Your meeting has been successfully canceled. If you decide to revisit this in the future, please feel free to reach out. Is there anything else I can assist you with today?
No, bye. Okay. So let me go show you the actual functionality. So what we have here is that we have a basic we just have a basic it will actually list the the meetings. So it lists all the meetings and it'll filter it by email. So we have the email parameter here. It should filter by email and see to get the latest meeting from the user. And after it gets the latest meeting, it should it's gonna call the cancel API endpoint for Calendly to actually cancel the meeting, and it will give the reason for cancel the meeting here pretty much. So to get the variable for this right now, you can see that there's a user UI variable. To get that, you're just gonna have to just call the get current user endpoint, and you can see here it has the user UI pretty much for this. So going back to that, let me go and show you what it ran. See what I ran. So you see it got my email, and then it got my user UI. And you're probably wondering how I got my email without me actually giving the email. But remember I told you before in the automation, I'm pulling previous data. I'm pulling previous data from the Google Sheets. So if a similar number that's already called us before calls us again, we pull the data like the email, the hit call history, the name, all that stuff, and input that inside the prompt. And if you go here, let's go back to VAPI. In here, you can see that there's a section called variables that has all this data in here. So it has the caller's name, current booked meeting, email, last call summary. And if you go to my actual prompt, my tools, my tools, and you see how I prompt the variables, I tell it exactly to this email will be mentioned in the prompt and reference in the variable section of the prompt. So it can actually look at the variable section and see that I've already see the email that's referenced there. And the email, if the email's not there, then if they cancel a meeting, that means they've already called us anyways. So that's how I kind of tell it. That's how I kind of prompt it to understand where to pull out the email. And if you look at my Gmail, you can see here. You can see that it was canceled pretty much. And what was I gonna do? And then the reschedule one it's pretty much the same concept. It's the same concept. It's the same concept. It's the same concept. Because Calendly doesn't have a reschedule meeting API endpoint. So what it's doing is that it's doing the same concept as canceling the meeting, and then it's rerunning the same functionality we do to book the meeting again. And you can see here I'm using this API key off request model instead of the Calendly model because I was reading some not documentation but a form saying that the cancel API endpoint doesn't work very well with the Calendly model make. So I just use the HTTP model, and I use the API key off request model so I don't have to hard code the plain API key in here. You can see I'm not hard coding in here, so that's why I use that one. And I think the biggest thing here that I use in the reschedule thing, and this is what people usually do with their API when they're doing booking functionality, is that you want the AI to have current knowledge on the current date, and that's where I pass it this now variable. And that's how it would know if I say I want to book a meeting in 2 days, or I want to book a meeting next week. It should have the current data, the current date. And this is a variable that Make has. If I go back to Make real quick. Yes. Just gotta change this. I don't think I changed anything. If I go back to Make, Go back here. You see here, this is a value that make has, but it's also a value that VAPI has that allows you to pass in the current date in your prompt. So you don't even have to use a server URL to get the current date, or use any make automation to get the current date. If I go to VAPI documentation, documentation. So dynamic variables. So it should mention here these are default variables you can use in VAPI. These variables are automatically filled based on the current UTC set time. So it's in UTC time though, that's one issue. But if you're not using the time, if you're using time, that's a little harder because I remember AI is not really good at math, so I don't always trust it to properly convert the time to the proper time zone. It can do that, but I don't always trust it. But if you just want to get the date, then it's really good. You can just get now the current time and date, or just use date to get the current date, and you just put that directly inside your prompt. And so if a user says, "Hey, I want to book a meeting a few days from now," VAPI will completely understand that. So let me see if I can test it. Now, even that won't always be accurate because again, the AI is not always good at math. It's sometimes it's usually accurate, but it's not 100% because again, AI is not really good at math. I guess the only thing I would say is using to fix that is maybe using a more intelligent model because I wouldn't really want to use a function call to validate that because then it kind of ruins the calls experience. So yeah, I would say I would kind of say yeah, I would kind of say using a smarter model would be the best way. Or if if you are doing a function call, then you can run code to validate. You can have a function call if they say like a few days from now, you take that value, and then maybe you can use code to kind of adjust that to the proper I guess the proper date they want, and then pull the availability from there. I'm doing it pre-call, so I think the best way is it's not I'm pulling the dates pre-call. The best way to do it is use a smarter model that understands the how many days correlate to the current date or something, and how if I say 5 days, and that means it's this date or whatever, and this date will be in this week or whatever. Oh, it will be this day. So this let me call it real quick. Hey,
Hi there. Welcome to Arbitrage AI Voice Consulting. How can I assist you today?
I want to reschedule.
Of course. Can you please share the reason for rescheduling your meeting?
I'm busy that day.
See that your current meeting. I understand. Just to confirm, your meeting was originally scheduled for December 31st, 2024, at 11 a.m. EST to discuss building an AI voice bot for Loezi Parkway's call center.
Yeah.
When do you think you'll be most available? Got it.
Um.
Let me help you find a new time. When do you think you'll be most available for the meeting?
Maybe like how about like 3 days from now?
3 days from now would be January 7th, 2025. Let me check what times are available for that day. In the afternoon on January 7th, I have the following times available: 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m., 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m., 3:30 p.m., 3:30 p.m., 4:30 p.m.
Yeah. And I don't want to go through all this since we already did the cancel meeting functionality, but you can see that it knew that 3 days from now would be January 7th. It already knew the current date I booked the meeting because I have that in my Google Sheets, and then it already knew the availability since we did that pre-call. So if I gave it the availability, it would just cancel the meeting and then reschedule that meeting using the same functionality we did for the book meeting. Since we already went for the cancel book meeting functionality, I don't really need to demo that completely, but yeah. And I mean, that's really all that's kind of left. Though, oh, one more. The last thing is that if you go here to functions, VAPI does have some predefined functions you can use. It has a function you can use to transfer phone calls. It has a function you can use for this to dial digits, and it has a end call function to use to end the call. And again, this is something that you have to prompt it really well. Like even when I prompted my prompt, it wasn't working very well. So this is something you really have to experiment with prompting. If you go to how I did it, because it wasn't, I had to end the call myself. Mine wasn't ending the call very well, and it's something you really have to prompt well so it ends the call at the right time and doesn't end the call at the wrong time. So right now, what I have it prompt is step 3 end call. I tell it this is the final step you take once you complete the task for the service call completed, and the caller confirms that they don't need any for assistance. Politely thank the caller and wish them well, and then call the end call function. I gave them an example. This didn't work really well. It usually works well, but I think my prompt is really big, so it's not working accurately. What I would do is probably give it a better dialogue example, maybe for it so it understands, and maybe give it more extreme instructions, like give it very more specific instructions of when to do the end call function so it ends the call. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Very very long video, but you get to learn. I mean, if you watch it, you get to learn a lot. So yeah, I mean that's it. So I'll see you guys.